Okay, guys, we're going to roll to a start here tonight and try to get this underway. I appreciate you guys all coming out here tonight and being a part of this. Tonight, as we usually do, we're going to be in two parts. Parker is going to come up after me, and he's going to do a section on apologetics, and so you'll get to learn all about what that is from the master himself. And then I'm going to do a little presentation tonight. Going to change it up a little bit. We've been doing atheism the last few weeks. Tonight I want to just have a conversation about two components of relationships. And that's going to feed into, I'm hoping, we'll set the stage for what Parker is going to be talking about here in just a few minutes. But tonight I want to talk about, for my section before I head upstairs, is I want to talk about the difference between faith and trust. Now, I know a lot of people probably think those two things are the same thing, and they certainly are related. But faith and trust actually, while they may start in the same place, they express themselves in different ways. And that's what I want to spend the first few minutes before I head upstairs tonight talking about, is the difference between faith and trust. So trust is, I'll go ahead. I was going to ask, I'm going to tell you. Trust is the firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something. So I'll say that again. Trust is the firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something. That's what it means to trust something. Essentially, I interpret this as saying, if you trust something, you know what you're going to get from it. You have an understanding what you're going to get. Meaning all of you right now, or at least most of you who are in this room right now, you're trusting the chairs that you're sitting in. Because you knew what you're going to get out of them. You sit down and the chair bears your weight. That's what you trusted the chair to do. You also trusted when you showed up that we were going to have some kind of supper for you here tonight. A number of you took advantage of that, which is great. You know, you all trusted that you were going to show up tonight and Parker and I would have something prepared to talk to you about. So you knew that going in. Now, as I thought about this afternoon when Parker and I talked about it earlier today, and I've been kind of running it through my mind, trust actually has a positive and a negative. You know, if I trust something and I know what I'm going to get from it, that's a positive thing. However, and I know you all know people like this, is sometimes I trust things to not go the way I want them to. You have an experience with somebody, you have an experience with a situation, and you know, based on past experience, that whatever it is you think is going to happen probably won't, and you trust that it won't, and you plan accordingly. Does that make sense? Okay? And we're going to talk about some examples of how these things work in just a second. But we all have that too. And that actually is an assuring thing. If I know you're going to let me down, I don't trust you. I don't put my personal happiness and well-being in your court if I know you're not up to the challenge. And again, I'm not pointing out anybody here. I'm just saying, y'all know people that's how it works. And so file that away. We're going to come back and talk about trust in a second. Let's step over now and look at faith. I am interpreting, in the way that I'm using these two words, I'm interpreting the concept of faith as being the next step. Okay? As being the next step in the process. Faith is confidence in someone or something. Which means, okay, now I'm willing, if I trust you, that's one thing. But if I have faith in you, I'm now willing to put my well-being in your care. I'm willing to put myself out there hoping that you're going to catch me. Like if I, we will not be doing this tonight, but if I decide to climb up on the table and do a trust fall and fall off, have faith that you're going to catch me, please don't be offended. I don't, so we ain't. but that's how that works, okay? I'm putting my well-being in your care. These relationships are ones you reserve for a very few people. You know, your spouse, your God. Honestly, that's might be the only two. I'm trying to think of another one. But that's where you're willing to put faith in another person. You probably have some friendships with some people who are up for the challenge. and willing to take care of things. So you're willing to put all that stuff out there. You're willing to invest in the relationship. Okay? That's what it means to have faith. So to trust somebody is to believe in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of that person. Basically, you know what you're going to get. Might be good, might not be. That's what it means to trust. Faith means whatever it is that I believe about you, whatever trust I have in you, I'm willing to put money where my mouth is and put myself out there for you to take care of one way or the other. Now, every relationship you have, from your closest relationships to the person that checked you out at the grocery store that you say hi to, and that's about it. The relationship you have with that person revolves around these two components. Where are you at on these? How much trust you have in them? If it's somebody like a family member, trust and faith need to be pretty high. If it's the person checking you out at the grocery store, you're basically saying, don't scan my eggs twice. That's pretty bargain basement low. Now let me tell you how these relationships play out. And as I kind of go through how these will work, I want you to think about your relationships. Not only with each other, not only with your spouses and your significant others, but I also want you to have some thought about this as far as your relationship with God. Because these two components, trust and faith, also speak to that relationship a lot too. And that's the part of it that Parker's going to come back to with apologetics here in a little bit. So let's start with the first one. What happens in a relationship where you have neither trust nor faith? Now you might be tempted to say, well, that doesn't sound like a relationship at all, but I disagree. I think it is. You can have very positive relationships that involve no trust and no faith. Anybody want to give me an example of what that might be? What's a relationship that you can have that's positive that you have zero trust and zero faith in? Any parents here? Got children that are young or not so young? You love them, but nobody's going to go and say, okay, Johnny, you're 3 years old. Mommy's going to go out, and I'm going to be gone for 9 or 10 hours. I want you to be good. You don't do that. Why? Because you have no trust, and you have no faith that the house will even be standing, let alone the children will be alive when you come back. Right? Am I right? Now, I'm not going to say, well, that's a very negative relationship. It might be a little bit one-sided, but it can still be a positive relationship. But you have to understand that's what you're getting into. If you put too much trust and too much faith in that relationship, like you put your self-esteem in the hand of your 3-year-old, you are going to a bad place right there. So you want to watch how much faith and trust you put in that. Whatever it is, if it has no trust and no faith, if it's positive, it's going to function like a parent-child relationship. So if you have a relationship with somebody that's not a parent-child relationship and you have no trust and no faith, that's a problem. Because you're still going to try to be the parent in that situation. And that's not good. Y'all follow me how this works? Okay? So you got to have a no trust, no faith relationship with the right people. If you have a no trust, no faith relationship with a coworker, that derelict who's the nephew of the boss and doesn't ever do his job and makes you want to punch him in the face every time you see him, your relationship with that person is not going to be positive. Now, we can debate whether or not they earned that, but that's how it's going to be. Because they have no interest in listening to you and you have no faith or trust in them. So those can be positive and they can be negative. Okay, let's go to the next type of relationship. What if you have trust but no faith? Okay? What does a relationship look like that? And I would contend that, and remember what those two terms mean. Trust is a firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of the other person, which means you know what you're going to get from them. You have a reason to know what you're going to get from them, but you don't have any faith that it's in your best interest. So what does a relationship like that look like? A relationship with trust with no faith is a very, very cold relationship. Very cold. Micromanaging. A lot of meddling is going to go on. A lot of, behind the scenes, a lot of manipulation. Because I know what I can get from you, therefore I'm going to get it from you, but I have no faith you're going to just do it out of the goodness of your heart. This is a not good relationship. This is somebody you need to keep at arm's length, which means when marriages descend into this, which they often do, they're in a very, very bad place. Because I know what I'm going to get from you enough to know that you're not going to do the right thing out of the good, or at least what I define as the right thing out of the goodness of your heart. And in a relationship like that, things are going to get damaged, things are going to get hurt, people are going to get let down, and a lot of people are going to be disappointed. Because I know what you're capable of, and I absolutely don't believe you're going to do it. That's a relationship with trust but no faith. If you have that relationship with God, that's a tough place to be. Because you know what God is capable of, you're perfectly willing to trust that, you just have no faith that it's ever going to work out in your favor. It's a bad place to be. All right, let's go to the next one then, as you can imagine. What does a relationship look like if it has faith but no trust? This is the worst of all. Of all four of the relationships we're going to look at, this is the worst one. Where I believe in the goodness of your heart, but I have no reason to trust that you can do anything. This is a difficult one. Because usually what this defines as is I want to believe in you. And I want you to do the right thing. And I want you to be an adult. And I want you to carry your weight. And I want you to make a contribution. And I want you to do all this stuff. And I'm going to believe that you're going to do it. But I have absolutely no trust that you will. Because I know what you're capable of. And it's not what we're looking for here. This, and let me tell you what this will come to. Where the other relationship, the one with trust but no faith, micromanaging, a lot of fighting, it's very hot all the time. Everybody's always angry and fighting because I know what you're capable of. I don't understand why you won't do it. This one never fights. Never argues. Because I know you're not capable of doing anything valuable. That's mean to say, but that's where this is. I don't trust you to do anything. I believe in you. I know what I'm going to get from you, but I know that it's not going to go anywhere. This is a relationship that has no expectations, has no intimacy, has no camaraderie, has no friendship, has no fun. It never laughs. Everything is just, and that's what it is. Because I believe in you, but I don't trust you. Because I don't know what I'm going to get from you. And I have no reason to expect any better. That's the third example. Then the last example, anybody want to guess what this one is? Both. Thank you. Both faith and trust. What happens when you have both? Spoiler alert, this is the one you want to have. Okay, this is the one where I know, you're consistent. It's predictable what you're going to contribute. And I also believe in you that you have best interest at heart. Yours, mine, the situation, our family, our situation, whatever we're trying to accomplish in this job, I believe in you. And if you can have a relationship with God that looks like this, a relationship with your spouse that looks like this, a relationship with friends that look like this, neighbors, coworkers, these kind of relationships don't do anything but thrive. Thrive and win all the time. Now, I know relationships are seasonal. They don't go through this all the time. But when you're in this spot, this is a good place to be. Because this is where everything's working like it's supposed to. We're accomplishing things. Everybody feels safe. Everybody feels happy. Everybody feels productive. Everybody feels like not only they're giving, but they're getting from the relationship. This is when it's the best. Now, the reason I wanted to bring this up tonight, in light of what Parker is going to stand up here and talk about, is there are going to be times that you're going to run into people who have one of these relationships with God. Of course, I'm never going to accuse any of you of having a relationship like that with God, because I'm sure none of you good Christians ever would. But somebody you run into at one point may have to go through a season where not only they don't trust God, they don't have faith in God anymore, and I'm kind of done. Kind of out. God didn't do this, God did do this, God allowed that, God didn't prevent it. I mean, pick your reason. But there's a lot of people out there, and look, I've been through it too. I've gone years at a time where I didn't pray at all, even when I was in the pulpit every Sunday. Because God and I were on the outs. I'm thankful I'm not there today, but I've been through that season. And any of you who are going to be honest, know you have too. Maybe not for a whole year, but you've been there. And so when you run into somebody, what do you say to somebody like that? And I'm only asking this question because I want you to think about what you're going to say to you when you get to be like that. Because you need to think about it. What happens when I wake up in the morning And God's win streak is pretty short right now, and I'm feeling aggravated. And then I get the phone call that this happened and that happened, and I got these people who are mad at me, and that person over there is out to get me, and the IRS. That's it, the IRS. So yeah, that makes us frustrated, right? It makes us aggravated, and the car doesn't start, and it's like, God, can one of these things work? Just one of them. I don't care. Pick one and make it work. You've all been there. What do you say to yourself when you get into that season? Now, you may have a time when you're reading the Bible, your prayer life is good, you know what to expect from God, you've got a good place going. God is, maybe not always predictable, but He's dependable. So you trust Him, but God is saying, all right, see that area over there that's outside of the line of the comfort zone? I want you to go over there. And you're like, whoa. I don't know about all that. That's trust without faith. God is saying, I want you to take that step, and you're saying, you first. Okay? And that's a rough place to be. What do you say to somebody else who's going through a time like that? What do you say to them? It's apologetics. There may be another time when, look, I still believe in God, and Easter is awesome, and Christmas is great, and I'll sing the songs, and Daryl plays them so beautifully, which he absolutely does, and I'll come to church, and I'll be there, but I got the faith. I just don't really trust it's doing anything. I had a prayer I've been praying for years. Same prayer for years and years. And God hasn't done a doggone thing about it. So I know what to expect from God. I trust Him, but I don't know if any of this is doing any good. What do you say to somebody who's in that season? That's a rough season to be in. We've all been there at some time or another. What do you say at those times when you're in that time? The other piece of that is you're also going to go through seasons where you're doing both of them, and everything's good. My faith is high. My trust is good. God is obviously blessing me in some way or another. Nothing bad has happened in almost a day now. I mean, I'm on a roll. So you go through this time and feeling pretty good. What do you say to somebody else who's going through a time like that? And again, have I been clear enough? When I say somebody else, I actually mean you. Have I been clear enough about that yet? Okay. But what do you say during those times? How do we explain that? How do we explain how the relationship with God can go from hot to cold? How it can go from very close and passionate and feeling in times when you're like, whoa, out. What do we say during this? Because we're going to have to answer to all of those times because we've all been in all of those times. And by all of us, I mean all of us have been in all those different places. And you have to know what to say to somebody going through those times, because if you don't know what to say, then you're going to stay there until you figure out the answer. And that's what apologetics do, is how do we get God to speak into whatever season we're in? How do we get God to speak in a way we can hear and understand during a season that's great? Because sometimes it's hard to hear God when things are like so great and my future's so bright I got to wear shades and all this stuff. God may be, hey, I got this. And you're like, what? Yeah, I'm here. Just hang on. I'm going to do this. This is awesome. Sometimes it's actually harder to hear God when things are going well. Sometimes it takes a little bit of less than desirable to sharpen the senses a little bit. And not that I'm wishing that on anybody, including myself, but we've all been to those times. Sometimes it's going to be really easy to hear God, and other times it's not going to be so easy to hear God. But it is always important to hear God, because God is going to be saying different things depending on where you are with Him and how that's going and what you're expecting to happen and where you are in your walk with Jesus. And you're going to have to, those lines of communication always have to be open. Even if we want to take a jackhammer and cut those lines down. I don't know, cut them down with a jackhammer. That's my analogy. But you understand what I'm saying. Sometimes we want to sever the connection, because I'm either not hearing anything, or I'm hearing too much, or I don't care what I'm hearing, or I don't want to be distracted from what's going on right in front of me. We still need to be hearing from God. And apologetics is the way that we enable and allow that to happen. So that's where those conversations come from. Okay, before I escape to the roving chaos that makes me question my life choices upstairs, do you have any questions for me here? So I've either confused you enough, or I've talked myself into a big enough circle, or you guys are almost good. All right. All right, cool. You guys are going to remind Parker something before you leave. What is it? Turn off the camera. Very good.
Please do.
Yes, yes.
All right, so
You guys have fun. This is the good part.
So Tim mentioned a lot about faith and truth and trust and all of those things. However, that's going to be really useful in a couple weeks from now. Once when we get more towards the end of this class. Because I'm going to start us off today with going directly to the basics of apologetics. Now, that's a big word. All right, it was a big word for me when I first saw it. Does anyone in the room know what apologetics is or are?
Defense of the faith.
Yes. It comes from the Greek word apologia, which actually means a formal written defense of one's opinions or beliefs. However, over time, it's moved forward, and now we call it apologetics in the current language that we have. So yes, Jack is spot on. Star student Jack is back there. Who got it down? However, I gotta say, I got some inspiration to do this lesson from from Craig. So, and he was wondering just a minute ago why I kept looking at him, acting as if he had all the answers, because he's the one who's been going through this whole thing. But no. So, I got the inspiration from them. I kind of put some thought into it. I was like, yeah, that's a valid thing we should be talking about. So, we're going to talk about apologetics, the defense of our faith. All of us have kind of learned a little bit about what the faith is. I can't hand it all over to you like I wish I could. However, I think we've given enough information to where once we start to go out and carry our faith and put on the whole armor of God and shine that righteousness, a lot of people are going to notice something about us, right? Something changes, right? A Christian is set apart from the world, and people notice that. So they're going to ask you, why do you believe what you believe? Why do you act like that? Why do you believe that law should be used and followed and so forth? And today I'm going to talk all about the basics. Why on earth do any of you believe there is a God that exists? That is the basics we're starting at. That is where we're going. So I would like to read actually a piece of scripture that kind of defends the use of apologetics from 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15. But in your hearts, honor Christ the Lord as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is within you. Yet do it with gentleness and respect. Okay? So, if you have faith and you have trust in your faith and you accept it to be true, that does not give you the right to go around and questioning other people's intelligence about your faith, okay? So, we are to do this, we are to practice apologetics with gentleness and respect towards one another. So, over the last 25 years, I'd say, it's probably more than that, but over the last 25 years, do know I'm 18, so I'm not really professional about everything over the last 25 years, but, you know, we do have history books and whatnot. But over the last 25 years, the way we use apologetics has changed drastically. It has completely shifted in the entire way we kind of use the defense of the faith. Why?
Because the old way wasn't working?
Yeah, it's true. In the day and age that we live in, the old way doesn't work.
I think it would be kind of like we said last week. In the absence of truth, you have to go on a more personal level, because when you have systems that you've been brought up to believe in, and they're curving to meet culture versus truth, well, then you can't really defend something when all of a sudden people are saying, but that's not true anymore. And so it's kind of going on a personal level of what God's done for me versus maybe the historical aspect of the faith. Does that make sense?
Yes. What I'm going to say, and it's going to make me sound like some old timer, but what I believe has completely changed the entire way we do apologetics is technology. Technology has completely shifted everything. All of us have phones. I'm not going to say all of us, but like TikTok, right? Some of us know what that is. Instagram, Facebook, how I can get news in anyone's opinion in a matter of seconds just by pulling out my phone. News is known anywhere. I can be informed upon any topic like that within milliseconds. I just type it into Google and I get a million articles about whatever I want to know. The information is out there to defend your faith. The information is out there to, oppose the faith, all right? And it's in everyone's pockets. It's on our computers. It's out there. The information is there. The only thing that's different now is we live in a generation where truth kind of lost all of its meaning, right? In the sense that I can believe one thing and I could care less what's actually true. If I wanted to believe 2 + 2 = 5, who's going to stop me? I know that's kind of bizarre, right? That's kind of nonsense. You're thinking, Parker, that's pretty extreme, wouldn't you think? But who's going to stop me? If I possess the thought, the belief that 2 + 2 = 5, or if I believe $1 actually equals a $5 bill, well, then the entire currency is messed up. But who's really going to stop me, right? The government, right? That's positioned there. However, when we talk about things such as the faith, you're pretty much capable of believing whatever you want to believe in. Whatever God you want to believe in, whatever non-God you want to believe in, whatever story you hold true to, everyone has the right to believe whatever they want. And when we get to asking what is truth, especially about things such as religion and your faith, it's a very hot mess. All right? They say the 2 worst conversation starters are what? Politics and religion. Why? Because that involves a lot of opinions and a lot of people what they hold to be truth, right? So it leads to just a whole hot mess of conversation. And this is why we have apologetics in the church today. And this is why people teach apologetics. Why do you believe there is a God? Why do you believe God came down to earth? Why do you believe God said you should do this? What is your defense of your beliefs? That's what the whole meaning of the word is. And today I just want to ask you, and I hope this is interactive. This will hopefully turn into an interactive question, all right? Why do you believe a God exists? What gives you any proof? Miracles. Can you give a specific one?
The good restroom.
Mm-hmm.
That's a miracle.
Yes.
She listened to God and did what he said.
I think everybody's experience, but I mean, if you see a beautiful sunrise or sunset, it's logically very hard to say that just came out of nothing. The rational mindset will be that's got to come from somewhere. Now, whether you know it's God or any of that, it's the logical thing that something had to create it.
Yeah, ration and logic are 2 things that are very hard to find anymore, especially though too. So this all goes to oneself. And in my generation and generations below me, those things are kind of thrown out the window. And you are really blessed if you got them. I mean, that's a true statement. I see a lot of people my age who have completely derailed from any form of logic, reason, truth, faith, trust, and all of those things. It's a serious problem for people my age and people of all ages, especially in the world that we live in, because I can look at my phone or I can be scrolling on TikTok or Facebook and I can have someone tell me that my God doesn't exist because several billion years ago a couple rocks collided and poof, we magically are here. And that's going to bring us to what we're going to discuss and talk about today, all right? So I brought up the TV because this is serious. And I was going to use a whiteboard, but my handwriting is horrible. The Cosmological Art Argument. It has been, this whole debate, this argument goes back to the 13th century and beyond. There was a man by the name of Thomas Aquinas. He is a Catholic saint. He is what is recognized as one of the early church's first apologists. He came up with things of saying, well, someone had to put this whole universe into motion. Someone had to allow the world to spin. Someone had to put the water, the air, the trees, the resources here on this earth, and all those things. And Thomas Aquinas back then, in his day and age, apologetics was the only thing that people were really talking about. Faith was huge. Why? Because also back then we were finally discovering, what are those things shining in the sky at night? right? Like we're finally learning and grasping knowledge behind things that we kind of just made up, you know? We said we don't have the exact definition of what those things in the sky are that we see at night. But we can assume there's something. It might be angels. There might be, spirits floating in the sky, or whatever they called them back then. Then we got a telescope. We're able to look. We're able to find out that stars kind of exist. All right? So the cosmological argument is named after the universe, right? The cosmos. So it's all about how did it begin? What caused the start? What made the start? Why do we believe there was a start date in general, right? One of the largest topics that comes behind this in the argument, and again, with an argument, there's two sides to it, right? So there's one group and there's the other, and there could be many more, but majority of the time they boil down to two. So the first one is a lot of people believe that the Earth never had a start date. The Earth just it's always been, always will be. We're just here in matter and in space, and we're just going to keep on floating for a long time, I guess. There's people that believe that the Earth never had a start date from eternity. We've just constantly been here. And as time progressed, we eventually turned from the little organisms that were living in the water and evolved to be humans that can build buildings, that can sit in chairs, that have technology, that provide information within all that technology as well. We have advanced over the years. But that's jumping ahead a little bit. There's a large group of people that believe that we've just constantly been spinning and we exist forever. Well, what kind of defense do we have to that? When someone comes up to you and says, how can you believe that a God created this whole earth? What proof do you have? Does anyone have any proof? I'm assuming none of us are old enough when creation was going on, right? I mean, I wasn't there, but somewhere, I don't know, right? I wasn't there to see it with my own eyes, but we know what is like does anyone know like the laws of motion? You know the laws of motion? Like an object in motion stays in motion, right? But how does an object get motion? Something puts it there, right? Something forces it in that state. Something makes it move, right? So again, the earth is spinning. The earth was formed. Something had to do that with the logic, right? An object in motion has to be put in motion by something else. So what this leads us to is this quick thing right here. So we have two parties within the whole realm of creation, of the cosmological argument, all right? There are those who believe we existed from eternity, and those people are whack, all right? Honestly, I can't see eye to eye with that. But then there's also the people that believe, well, there once was a time, a lot of space boulders smashed together in the exact location where we can have a life and a world grow that is sustainable for humans to exist. And out of that, we magically became humans and evolved from all these other organisms and whatnot, and we are here today, and so forth. So they have a statistics behind the probability of that happening. And it is 1 out of 100 to the radical, all right? And a radical is 100 times every number below 100. So 100 times 99, and 100 times 98, and continue and continue and continue. I was going to say that number is far too large to put onto the slideshow. However, I eventually found the way to make it work. I hope you all can see that. This is the number. And I'm not going to say that because I have no clue what places that is in, all right? But it's 1 out of that big of a number for Earth to have actually originated, all right? Now, with what proof do they have? Right? What proof gives anyone to say, out of 1 blank, whatever this is, the Earth hit those rocks together And on those rocks was every natural resource that we needed for Earth to evolve, for us to eventually live in the place where we have air, where we have an ozone layer, where gravity exists, where we're not too close to the sun, where we're not too close away from the, where we're not too far away from the sun. It's where life magically appeared. If you're asking me, I don't even know what kind of number this is. This is gibberish. This is number gibberish to me, right? Does anyone know what that, I mean, like, does that make sense? I have no clue what's going on here. Or am I just the only one? Okay, all right. Head nods would be good. I was like, you guys are really smart. Wow, okay. But for me, that takes a lot of faith for me to actually believe that, right? It takes a lot of faith to believe a God exists when we have arguments like this. Don't get me wrong, it takes faith. But what are you going to do with that information? I see this and I'm like, that's cool. I could put a number behind God. I could put a statistic behind the existence of a God, and what are you going to do about that then? This doesn't mean anything to me. This random number of the existence of the earth. If anything, I think it proves my point, because no one knows what that is. But I can tell you a God exists. You've seen miracles. The Do Good restaurant, that was a miracle. There's many more. We hear about miracles all in our Bible, right? But then you also have to ask the question, if you're trying to defend your faith, you can't really use the Bible for a lot of it yet until you get a little bit further down the road, right? Until you can prove the existence of a God, the Bible has no value yet. Because what is the Bible? The Word of God. And if there is no God, then that's just a fancy book. All right? So, creation by chance. How? Take that for all it is worth. Creation from the form of a supernatural being, all right? That's the other side of the argument. I'm not even trying to prove Christianity yet. I'm just trying to say there is a God that exists, okay? And now, to say, again, I say God or supernatural being, but again, according to the laws that the world and scientists have already come up with, such as motion, such as energy, and all those other things, for the earth to exist, this being has to be timeless, spaceless, materialless, powerful, and intellectual, and personal. Now, when I say those things, what pops into your mind? When I describe something with those characteristics and qualities, what pops into your mind? God, right? According to science, and everything that has existed so far, for anything to have been created, there had to be a creator, something. Whether it's a big ball of energy out in the space universe somewhere, you can believe that, all right? But again, what created that energy? What happens there, right? This is, I'm assuming a lot of our minds are spinning, right? Because I say one thing, and then I say, well, what about this, right? I say, God could exist. It could be God, but it also could just be this big ball of energy, right? Doesn't that make us a little bit, our heads spin a little bit? Because what is true? But according to the logic and the reason we have here on Earth, something had to create that energy. Something had to create the space rock. Something had to happen for this whole universe, the cosmos, the galaxies, the Milky Way, everything to exist. All right? In the creation story, we don't hear about the individual stars being made, right? We hear a description of the creation, but it doesn't go into the exact detail of how God formed the atmosphere, had the sun made. Yes, we know He did it. Yes, we know that He said the light and the day and He created time and all these things to go with it. But I have no clue how God works. I have no clue how He did that. I know He did that. When you go to the doctor and they prescribe you any kind of drug, how many of you know exactly how that drug works within your body? Some of us. There's some drugs we understand a little bit. But then there's some times where I have something going on, I need to get an antibiotic, all right? I have no clue how that works. And again, I don't need to have trust and faith in my doctor to say, hey, this should take care of the problem, and all those things. So Tim talked about faith and trust. And there will eventually come to a point in time within your own lifetime and with your own understanding and logic and reason, to where you will come to the understanding that it makes no sense to just say it was all already there. That even the meteors that clash together weren't created by something. Creation has to have a creator. That makes sense. That's a logical explanation, I feel like, right? That offers some sort of value. Even if the earth was created by the clashing of two big rocks, who created the big rocks? And that's up to all of you to answer individually. But if I'm going to say, yeah, they were there, well, I mean, my argument stops there. But if I say, my God created them, well, then the argument ends a little bit further. I go one step back in time, right? So if I have a person who believes that chance created this whole thing, created this whole universe and world that we live on, their argument stops at the fact that something already was created before this all happened, right? Is that making sense? So even with the theory of the Big Bang, right, because that's what that is, with the clashing of the rocks and in the exact location, and that big number was the chance of that actually happening, that happened. What created everything else? Did magically the sun appear? What created the sun? I would like to know what the percentage, that was just of Earth. That was just of Earth, that number. What was the chance that the sun got created? I mean, imagine that statistic goes way further and way beyond when we take in all the pieces of the universe. It goes way beyond that. So, I mentioned basic science and logic that we have kind of here on Earth. An object in motion has to be put in motion, and it will stay in motion, and all those things. And energy comes from many things. However, energy is transferred, right? Energy had to exist prior to that. So, for a person to create, or a being to create, they have to be made of none of that stuff, right? Because I can't just take this and go from there, right? I can't take God, or this being couldn't take, here's some of my energy and create the whole universe, right? Some people would believe that. Some people do believe God is just a big ball of energy floating around in space. However, as this class will progress forward, we're going to start to learn why I have trust that my faith is true. So, obviously, I think I kind of hit how this being had to be timeless, spaceless, and materialless. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, powerful, intellectual, and personal. Obviously, this being has to have some knowledge, right? Has to have some sense of how this works. I'm assuming, unless they spent all of eternity smashing rocks together and it never coming out to be this beautiful place that we live on, this person had to have some logic and sense of intellect, right? They got to know what they're doing. They got to know the big picture of this whole Earth, universe, planet, everything is, right? I don't. I never will be able to handle all that. My mind is not capable of processing that much information and that much science and statistics and numbers and how all of it magically comes together to where we can stand in a building with this screen and I can talk to you all just from material and space. And chance, of course. Everything in life, in that way of thinking, is all up to chance. So, this person had to be powerful, had to be an intellectual. Why did it have to be personal? That this being had to want to create. This chair does not have any want. It doesn't want anything. This chair has no capability of moving over here unless I, a person with a mind, thoughts, and desires, move the chair. This chair cannot move on its own. It has no mind. It has no sense of legs that work. It doesn't exist like that. This chair will not move because it has no wants or desires. Therefore, if we put up to God saying, God could care less about people, God does not care about you at all. This is the beginning of the story of God's love for humanity. He created us, right, out of his own desire. He had to have the desire to create. This being had to be personal. Only persons can have desire to do something, right? Only beings can have the desire to do something like that. So God, we discover one of the first attributes of our God simply in the creation of the universe. He had to want to create. And he had to want to create a place that is fairly nice to live in, right? He could have gave us a lot worse conditions, right? Because it's God. And he could have put us a lot closer to the sun. And when I say a lot closer, just a couple milliseconds, whatever, away from the sun, and I'm burning to a crisp. And I hate the heat, all right? Or he moves us a little bit the other direction, and I'm frozen into space, right? God cared enough about his people to where he's going to put us on an earth that's sustainable, right? A place that we have water, naturally. We have air, naturally. We have an ozone layer to where we have protection from some of the harm from the sun. So it's not even that we're too close to the sun, but we also have built-in protection from the sun. We have gravity. Gravity keeps me down. Gravity keeps me here. I'm not floating around in space. None of us are floating around in space. Gravity exists. And I kind of just came to the realization, actually, as I was talking to you, that statistic was only for Earth. Only for Earth to come about. Not the fact that we live on a planet that has gravity, that has water, that has air, that has the sun, that has all the planets around us, that is in this universe, and not even counting the millions of other things that scientists have discovered in space, right? That number would be the entire slideshow of Tonight and Beyond, right? And that's shocking to me, because that takes a lot of faith in statistics, right? If I'm going to get a lottery card, all right, and I'm going to say I'm going to go for the Ohio lottery, I'm assuming a very large statistic of my chances of winning the Ohio lottery. And a lot of people do it, and they know, I'm probably not going to get anything, right? But it's worth a shot. Put that same mentality, same emotions and desires into a person who says, somehow I got here. It's up to chance. It happened. And humans were magically just the special ones that were able to develop skills such as building homes, such as having technology, such as having advancements, knowing to take antibiotics, knowing how to do surgeries and operations. Magically, humans were just the blessed ones. It wasn't the raccoons. I mean, what is that, right? Where's the defense of the other side? I may be very close-minded, I don't know, but I'm trying to picture the other side, and it doesn't add up to me. So God had to be personal. I believe this is enough evidence for me to understand that there is some form of being that put this whole thing into motion, that created this whole thing. I was watching a video, and it was by, it was like a school, like an educational YouTube channel called Crash Course. And it was about how if the universe expanded at a different rate, at any different rate, it would not have existed. It would have all collapsed back in on itself. So as creation happened, as the being, which is the side I'm going to believe in, right? I'm going to believe that a being exists that created this whole place. As that creation happened, if he was 1 second off, less than a second, in the creation of everything in our universe here today, it would have completely folded back in on itself. It's like a Jenga, right? If you pull one wrong piece, that tower's coming down. So God had to be an intellectual. This being had to be an intellectual, had to have some form of knowledge saying, if I do one thing wrong, it's all going to collapse back in on itself. Then there's people that say, well, you take statistics, but take statistics in a stance that is over several billion years, because if we're not going to hold true to kind of the Christian story of creation, then Earth has been around for a long time, very, very, very long time, right? And say, well, if I have that many billions of years for this to happen, then who's to say it wasn't, right? I'm no mathematician. I don't think I can handle all that numbers, but that number was quite large compared to a billion, right? We understand that?
Yes.
So, either way, you're putting faith into something, because our human minds cannot process any of that. That is all something way out there that I'm just going to put my faith in, right? And saying, I think where I stand, it's a logical decision. According to the science that we have come up with, it actually defends the belief in a God. Based upon the first logical laws that we received of science, right? An object in motion will stay in motion, and something had to put that object into motion. If that's true, something out there had to do it. And that something had to be timeless, spaceless, materialist, powerful, intellectual, and personal. So when you just see those characteristics, the first thing I'm going to pop to is it was God. It was a God. And as we move on to the next couple of weeks, we're going to start to defend why do I have faith in the Christian God? Why do I hold true to God creating the universe in this way? And then Him creating humans in His own image. Why do I believe in all that stuff? So what I provided you all, hopefully, with tonight was a defense of the belief in a God. How many of us have our heads spinning? Right? Just a couple of us? All right, that's a good number. Okay? But it's very true. This was the defense, Parker Miley's defense for a belief in a God. A God. And as we end closer towards the end of April, when we have our last class, hopefully I can make it to the time where we're talking about our God. The God who came down to this earth. The God who took the cross for us, and how we're natural sinners, and yet somehow God shows His grace upon us and has given us that wonderful gift that took place on the cross. So that is all I have for us all tonight. Hopefully that wasn't too much of an overload, because I even kind of did some research and my head's still spinning, all right? So I brought you all into it blindly. So I hope this was beneficial, and I hope this actually helps when we maybe encounter someone or see something on social media that kind of tells us we're wrong. Have a defense to what you believe in, because that's how it works. To quote one of my favorite songs, you've got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything, all right? That's the basics right there, okay? So thank you, guys. That's all I have for tonight.
Turn it off.